Greetings, this is a video analysis of my remote viewing session of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. For this session I'm using a combination of controlled remote viewing and the bullseye method. The idea of this video is to help beginners and give them a better idea of the process, but it's also to help myself. I consider myself only an intermediate level and I would greatly appreciate any comments from experts that are hopefully watching. So here's the photograph from the actual tasking itself. It shows the Tower of Pisa with some tourists and a nearby part of the cathedral and some grass and a blue sky. And as I'm writing down the first column of my data here, it looks like I'm in the general area and describing it. It's open, there's ground, it's spacious, it's big and open. And I go down and eventually I write that there's something there, a thing like technology, it's heavy and slow forward. This could be a description of the fact that it's leaning. I write bright grey. The picture is full of grey. The colour of the stones is grey. Then I write red. There is some red, a small amount of red if you look in the picture. And then I write metallic. There is also actually metal at the target, and we'll see that in some later feedback. So moving on to the second column, I'm writing open space, empty. So again, I'm describing the general area, straight metallic, but then I write round, which is a central feature of the tower itself. This shows that I'm zeroing in on the target. And then I put empty space area, ground, green, nature, grassy, technology. It's more of the same stuff. Man-made, and then metallic and cylindrical. So I've gone from round to cylindrical, which means I'm zeroing in on the target. And then I put blue sky, open. However, at this point in the session, I already had a strong AOL picture in my mind. Because I had words like spacious, empty, open, technology, and cylindrical, I thought that it was some type of space technology like a rocket or a test missile in an area like the desert. So I wrote that down as an AOL on the right-hand side. So as you will see later on in the sessions, my AOLs become even stronger. But the point of all this is that even if you have strong AOLs in your mind, just keep going because you might still be on target. You really have no idea. The point that you have an AOL is that you are interpreting that data yourself. So moving on to the third column, the important things which I wrote down are straightforward thrust, force in a direction, load. As we'll see later on in the session, I was basically focusing in on the force which I think is created at the bottom of the tower itself because of the fact that it's leaning over. The other thing which I wrote down at the bottom there is a thing, object, tech-like, man-made, but not intricate tech or intricate technology. I was trying to say that I didn't think that it was something like electronics, but I thought that it was man-made and intricate in some way. And it really is intricate. It's basically intricate architecture or a sort of a prestige architecture build. Basically, architects make prestige type buildings to show how good they are, right? Moving on to my second ideogram here, the first word I write down is event. Now, as we'll see later in the data, the event which I was focusing on here was the actual event when the Tower of Pisa itself began to sink. According to Wikipedia, it began to sink already during the building stage. However, it did survive several earthquakes later, and we'll see that that's what I was focusing on in the data. The second word I wrote down is test, and I AOL'd it because I had in my mind a picture at that point of a test, a missile test in the desert, and a test is something to do with that, so I wrote it down as an AOL. Further down I write, something which is in an open area is moving and is the object of some attention. People with their attention on something. People are either shocked or interested in something or looking at it because it's a spectacle. Now the Tower of Pisa is a spectacle. It's not just any old tower. It's a tower which is leaning over and yet hasn't fallen over. That's why it's famous and that's why people go to see it. Further down I wrote the words dust and dry, but I AOL'd them out because they were closely linked to the AOL picture that I had in my mind at that point, which was of the testing of a fast car in a large open plain, which I wrote on the right hand side. Then I wrote event which happened, not necessarily planned, a noteworthy event, special and interesting. I think I was focusing on the event which actually made the tower to begin to lean in the first place. And I wrote interesting, and I guess that means that that's why the tower is interesting, because this event happened to it. It began to lean but didn't fall over. I underlined the word interesting because as soon as you get some type of feeling like that, according to controlled remote viewing, you're supposed to move on to the next stage. So that was very clear to me at that point that I'd received some type of emotional feeling. Further down I wrote that there is some issue around the object to be concerned with. It's slightly complicated but not too much. I guess this could mean that the people are concerned it's going to fall over. Moving on to my third ideogram here, on the first column it's more of the same stuff, but I start to get different words like science, testing, and later on I write being watched, observed with interest. And then in the second column I've written finding, searching, researching, scrap metal, and then I write ending, final test, repeat, finding peace, quiet, serenity, far away, distant. And then I write I feel like I'm looking at something with some interest from far away, finding, final test, over, finish. Now, if you read the Wikipedia page on the Tower of Pisa, you'll find that the Italian government actually paid scientists over 2 decades to make stabilization studies to stop this thing falling over. In other words, it wasn't just a nice tourist attraction, oh look, there's a leaning tower. It was in actual danger of falling over. One of the solutions they finally came up with was to stuff the base of the tower with these metal lead blocks to stop it falling over, which is probably why I kept writing down metallic and metal in my stage 1 and 2. And then on the Wikipedia page it says that in May 2008 engineers announced finally that the tower had been stabilized and for the first time in its history it has stopped moving and therefore would be safe for the next 200 years, and therefore it was open to the public, you see. And that's why I got the data about being tested, final peace over serenity. Then I write down more data to do with the event of it leaning over, like destruction, cataclysm, explosion like, or more like a crash, or more like an impact with smaller impacts. And then I write that people are viewing it and they are interested, or they have a purpose, or that the purpose for viewing it is the impact. And again, this is probably the scientists who were trying to fix the fact that it was falling over. Then on stage 3 I'm supposed to draw a random picture, so I draw a random picture and just to get my hand moving. Here on page 5 I'm beginning to use the bullseye method. What I'm drawing are the images which I see in my mind. You can see that one of the last images there, I'm beginning to draw a long cylindrical object with these sort of radiating rings around it. So here I'm continuing with the bullseye method, but I still have in my mind this AOL of a military test or a missile test in the desert. And I am now at this point really focusing on a sort of a concept of an impact. And that's what I'm drawing in the 2 top pictures. Whilst drawing these 2 top pictures, I had the impression of something long and cylindrical and extremely hard, and that it is penetrating into something soft, and there is a strong impact associated with that. Now, after I got the feedback, of course, I realized that this impact I was focusing on is probably the force which the tower itself is putting on the soft ground on which it's built. But at the time I thought that this was a military test or something hitting the ground. Then I saw something which was long, hard and fast and made some type of impact, and there were waves emanating out in the medium from this impact, and that the medium was almost fluid-like, but it's not a fluid, but it reacted in such a way, and there was a shock, a suddenness and powerful impact. Now if we go to Wikipedia, it says the tower has survived at least 4 strong earthquakes since 1280. A 2018 engineering investigation concluded that the tower withstood the tremors because of dynamic soil structure interaction. The height and stiffness of the tower, combined with the softness of the foundation soil, influences the tower's vibrational characteristics in such a way that it does not resonate with an earthquake ground motion. In other words, the fact that they built the tower with a crappy foundation on soft ground, which is what made it lean over and almost fall over in the first place, ironically is what saved it from subsequent earthquakes later on. Here again I'm drawing the same thing, as something cylindrical, long, with impact and waves emanating out. I see objects on top of the surface bobbing up and down, and I also see people far away observing this thing. So here again I'm drawing more of the same stuff. The top picture, I actually saw a shock wave which was sort of slowly dissipating as it went out, and it was sort of hitting these people. Then I wrote down that the waves have force, motion, and that there are small parts like debris, but there are also spectators, and that they are in shock and fear, that it was unexpected, but however they are also taking notes. They're measuring, observing. It's a spectacle. It was an event. There's fear, shock and awe. So maybe these people which I am seeing are a mixture of tourists and scientists. So for these last three pictures at the bottom here, I'm trying to focus on the very point of the impact. So I'm trying to focus on this impact, and I see something very hard and fast that's penetrating. And it's going into something which is fluid-like, porous, sand-like, or which is softer. Again, I get this metallic thing, cylindrical. We already saw the metal at the base of the tower. And I say that inside this cylindrical object there are inner parts. It's man-made, like tech-like, but it's there are no moving parts, and that it's lost or forgotten, maybe perhaps that it happened in the past. And the very final picture at the bottom there, I saw this cylindrical hard thing going in and being enveloped by the soft material which was around it. So here I'm doing the stage 4, and I get words like shock, fear and awe. It's an amazing spectacle. There's finding, searching, seeking. There's a violent impact. It's sudden and strong, and people are fearful of the future because, I mean, the tower might fall over. But they're spectating, witnessing, they're seeing an event which is loud. It could be this impact type event. And I said that I get the idea that the loudness or suddenness of this event, although very fast, is overwhelming, hence the shock. Then at the bottom here, I'm trying to focus in on this cylindrical thing, whatever it is, and I've written hard, metallic, hard, cold, heavy. Here, the second page of my stage 4, I've written shock, awe, dismay, gasp, and I've drawn a picture of someone gasping. They're fearful of what they're seeing. Maybe they are fearful that the tower is going to fall over. Then I've written fear, test, finding, special, and prestige. Next to prestige, I wrote that it was an AOL because I still had in my mind a strong AOL here of a rocket test in the middle of nowhere, which was causing this type of impact and explosion. Then I've written, why is it done? It's a test. And then I've written, is it random? No. Procedure, testing, finding, showing, finding, seeing, determining, what? Question mark. Parameters, further development. Then here on page 11, I go back to the bullseye method, and I see people testing something or looking through a viewing screen and seeing a large cylindrical object far away. And there are things on a desk in front of them. Then I see this testing room again or something. I see a large viewing screen, a person who looks sort of formal in front of a desk, and I get the idea that it's a controlled procedure or strict. Everything is by the book, it's clinical, it's doing a job, it's being told what to do. And then I try to expand this word strict, and I get there's no messing around, no creativity, no thought. He's doing what he's supposed to do. It's regimented, or he's an operator. Now, at the time I was thinking, yeah, okay, this is a military test, and that was my AOL. But of course, we read from the Wikipedia page that there is some scientific testing and things around and associated with the Tower of Pisa. So here I'm doing more bullseye method, and I'm seeing somebody focus. I'm seeing this cone of focus through the screen, and it was a cone of focus and focus to a point, a target, and I heard clicking like buttons, and then I saw the same thing again, the difference between inside and outside, and something focusing from inside to outside, and it was far away. Then more bullseye method, I got visions of people inside some type of protected capsule with a viewing screen and these small particles of dust or whatever it is outside, but then being protected inside. And I wrote down the word test. Now at this point I've almost been 2 hours in the session, and I'm starting to begin to think that I'm veering off target now, because I'm getting these strange pictures, which could be, well, at the time I thought, oh god, they look like UFOs, but then maybe they're just in the general shape of the Tower of Pisa or something like this. Again, page 16, more general shapes which could be interpreted as UFOs, but this one halfway down the page here, it does have these waves emanating out, which is what I drew before. Then at this point I saw these strange shapes. The one which I'm drawing at the bottom was extremely colourful, but I couldn't make anything of it. It was very red and orange in the middle, with blue, yellow and green on the edges. And then finally on page 18 I did the bullseye method, and I heard very loudly the words impact, event and science, like that. So I wrote them down, and the picture which I saw was very strange. It was some type of pyramid type shape with things curling up and around from the bottom of the edge. I'm not sure what that is. Anyway, at this point I thought that I was going off target, because these pictures which I was drawing are quite different from what I did before. So I decided to finish the session at this point, and that was 2 hours in. So let me know in the comments, do you think I was on target? And see you again somewhere in the multiverse.